After knowing all the inputs and form components, the user can submit their form. Now, it is our turn to let them know if we received their input, and for that, we have feedback components. The alert component gives the user information about certain part of your application, which can be an error, success, warning, or even just additional information. It can be accessible through the severity prop. However, you can do interesting combinations in conjunction of the color prop, but personally, I wouldn't even use the color prop since each severity has its colors. By default, it has a variant of standard, but you can switch it to filled or outlined. The icon can also be changed with the icon prop. If you do not want any icon to be displayed, you can set it to false to remove it. You can also change the default icons for each severity using the icon mapping prop. I'll recommend to change it through the theme. The alert also includes a function called onClose, which generates an X icon by default. You can change this with the action prop providing any customizations. There's another additional component called alert title. It does not have any special props since it is only used to display a title inside the alert. However, you can customize it with the SX props or the theme. The dialog component, unlike the alert, is quite interruptive since it normally stops the user flow. To control the state, it uses a required boolean prop called open and an optional onClose prop which accepts a function with the event and a reason parameter. This reason parameter can be backdrop click when the user clicks outside of the dialog's contents, or escape key down when the user closes the dialog with the ESC key. So for instance, you can force the user to close the dialog through a button only or just through the backdrop click. They have an additional prop called disable escape key down to prevent the function to be called on escape key down. The dialog by default have a max width of SM. If you do not know what this means, you can check my video about theming and customization in which I explained it. This means that the dialog will not stretch more than the value of SM. It accepts the breakpoints values and you can set it to false if you just want the dialog to stretch as much as the content inside it. Alternatively, you can use the full width prop to force the dialog to stretch to the max width. You can also use the full screen prop if you want the dialog to take the whole screen. This will override the max width and full width props. There are times in which the dialog's content is large and by default the scrolling is set to paper, but you can also change it to body. The dialog is composed by many children components to facilitate customizations. You can add a dialog title component to display the title of the dialog, and a dialog content for its content, a dialog content text for a subtitle, and a dialog actions for any buttons or actionable area. Yeah, they are kind of self-explanatory, which is a good thing. Behind the scenes, the dialog uses the modal component, so its props are also available. Another type of popover component, which is less intrusive than the dialog, is the Snackbar, which is also used to provide information for a user of a certain action. Unlike alerts, the snackbar ignores the document's flow, so you can see it uses absolute positioning to achieve this. You can modify its position with the anchor origin prop by providing the vertical and horizontal values, top, bottom and left, right and center. Use the message prop for the snackbar's content and manage its state with the open prop and the function onClose. Just like the dialog, it accepts an event and a reason. The click away and key down works the same. As for the timeout, it is called when the auto high duration properties value is reached after a certain amount of milliseconds. Just like the alert component, you can provide an action prop to render an element at the end of the snack bar. Usually, you do not need to provide a children for the snack bar, but if you wish to have a customized snack bar, you can do so, like adding an alert to it, and this will replace the message prop. Let's get into the loading components. In the last video, I told you about the loading button. Well, it is achieved by using the circular progress component. By default, it has a variant of indeterminate, but you can set it to determinate and set your own values for it. Useful when you have different loading states. You can also change the color with the theme's values. If you prefer a progress bar, then you might opt for the linear progress instead. It accepts the same props as circular progress with additional variants called buffer. In this case, you will need to provide a value for the buffer as well, and query, which is just a change of animation on the progress bar. For For a modern loader, you can use the skeleton component. It has 4 variants: text, circular, rectangular, and rounded, in which the width and height can be set. The text variant size can be adjusted with the font size to match the text height. However, instead of setting the width and height, you can infer the size of the component by including it as a children or inside a text for the variant text. It has an animation prop, which by default is pause. You can set it to wave or disable it completely. That is all. Sometimes we forget that there's a lot of wait time when users interact with our app, so these indicators are useful to communicate it to the user. I hope you learned something new. Consider subscribing if you want future content as well. I see you on the next video. Bye!